Welcome to Unshakable Belief, where we dive deep into stories of resilience, faith, and finding your purpose. I'm your host, Monica Connolly, here to help you unlock your inner strength and take action toward a life you love. Let's get started. Welcome back to Unshakable Belief. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing a woman who is a dear friend. She embodies resilience, passion, and community driven leadership. My guest, Cristina Simmons, is a woman of many talents and an undeniable force in her community. She has navigated multiple career paths, always seeking growth and purpose while leaving a lasting impact on those around her. But her journey is more than just professional success. It's about deep personal transformation and advocacy. As a mother, Christina faced an extraordinary challenge when her child was diagnosed with autism. Like so many parents, she struggled to find adequate care and resources. Instead of accepting the lack of options, she took matters into her own hands, pursuing a career in occupational therapy so she could directly support her child and others like him. Her journey is a testament to the power of a mother's love and unwavering determination. Get ready for an inspiring discussion filled with wisdom, authenticity, and a few surprises along the way. Christina, welcome to the show.
Wow, that was amazing. I didn't even know I did all those things. Thank you for that introduction.
It's amazing what people see when they look at you through their lens instead of yours.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Thank you for having me. I'm
Well,
so excited to be here.
absolutely. Can you start by sharing a little bit about yourself and what drives your passion for personal growth and transformation?
So, what you may not know about some of my story is all of my kids are adopted. So we have our son that's 16 that has autism, and then I have twin girls that are 21. But the reason that we adopted is because my husband and I carry a very rare gene that makes very sick babies. So we had our first daughter lived for 3 days, and we buried her, and then we ended up cremating two more infants, and I had a miscarriage in between there. So that's kind of what led us to the journey of adoption. And so through all that grief from losing my biological children, I never really had time to process that. But, and then we adopted soon after. So that sort of led me down a path of anxiety, depression. I gained a lot of weight. My husband and I didn't know how to communicate with each other because we grieved differently. So that on top of, I am a little bit of an overachiever, kind of constantly trying to one up myself, I guess, and wanting to know, have more knowledge and to be the best in what I do. And so that's kind of what led me down the education path. I sort of threw myself into education because I wanted to understand, I wanted to understand the genetic disease. I wanted to understand more about how all that works. And then when our son was diagnosed, I wanted to understand autism so that I could understand his perspective and kind of get in his head. And I had to have education and knowledge to do that. I couldn't find anybody to help me. So I said, all right, I'll do it myself. So that's a little bit of the story anyway.
Yeah, and I know we have had conversations about this, and I think that, both of us in the same situation of losing a child, you throw yourself into your husband or your other children, or you throw yourself into work, and society doesn't really, it's easy for society to, be like, okay, it's time for you to be over this, and you never stop and take the time to actually process it and grieve the way that you should. And then you're just moving into something else as quickly as you can because the society tells you, no, you should be done with this. It's time to move on. And I know that
Well,
was a
that's one of the things, yeah, that's one of the things I always
yeah.
had a real problem with is that everybody else's life seemed to just go on. Like I had never lost a child. Like I was not in pain. Like, my world stopped
Right.
and the outside world just keeps on turning.
Yeah.
And so that's really hard when you're grieving. And you're right. Society just says, oh, well, that's done. You have to work. You have to take
Right.
care of your kids that you have now. You have to take care of your husband. You have to pay your bills. You have to clean your house. You have, when all you want to do is crawl under the covers and never come out. So, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's very much a conversation that needs to happen more out in the open, and people need to talk about it more. It's something that people tend to carry a lot of shame, and they don't want to talk about it because a lot of times they haven't processed it and addressed the trauma properly. So, they don't want to address it because it brings you back to a place you don't want to be. Going through, that grieving process and actually processing everything is so important to being able to move forward.
Yeah, because it brought me to compounded trauma, which was
Mhm.
then trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma,
Yeah.
which then started to take physical, tolls on my body.
Yeah.
So I destroyed my gut health. I had chronic pain, started getting injuries. I mean, it's just been one thing after another. So that's another reason you need the grief is going to come out somewhere. I always say that if you don't deal with the grief, it's going to deal with you.
Yep.
So it's, it's, if
Absolutely.
you
Your
don't,
body holds
yeah,
on to it. Yeah.
if you don't take control of it, it will take control of you for sure.
Yeah. Well, going back to your son with autism, can you tell us about when you realized that you needed to become your child's biggest advocate?
So with the adoption, we adopted the twins first, and that's a whirlwind. Going from never having a baby to having twins was a lot, and they were born with cocaine in their system, so there was some withdrawal and that kind of thing. So their whole, from like 0 to 3 was just kind of a whirlwind. When Judson came along, our son, he was a fantastic baby, like compared to the twins. But then when he started getting to like 3 and 4 years old, even 2.5, 3 years old, we started noticing differences between him and how the girls were when they were that age.
Yeah.
And we're talking big differences. He had like severe separation anxiety from me. He would scream if I even went around the corner. I mean, it was really, really bad. And then we started what at the time were sensory issues, but I didn't know any of that at the time.
Mhm.
Like couldn't put him in footed pajamas, wouldn't wear shoes, wouldn't put anything over his head. I mean, really, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, and then once we had him in daycare, um, I'm getting calls from the daycare every day. He's screaming. We can't keep him from screaming. Nothing makes him happy. You have to come pick him up. Like I had PTSD from the phone because
Right.
my phone was ringing every day, sometimes
Yeah.
multiple
Well,
times a
you feel
day.
so helpless.
Yeah. 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 So I
Mhm.
would, it was one of those things where like I would drop him at the daycare and he was screaming and I was crying like all the way to work. So, and then it got to where got kicked out of daycare after daycare after daycare. And then we finally, we got him into pre-K and they were getting ready to kick him out. And I'm like, okay, we've got to do something. So I said, I've got to take him to somebody besides the pediatrician and,
Yeah.
get like a diagnosis. At that point, we kind of had the thought that maybe it was autism, but I didn't know much about it. I didn't
Right.
have any friends with kids who had autism. So, and I was in like the real estate world at the time. So, anyway, we took him, he definitely diagnosed, and then they started talking about all of these therapies that he needed. He needed occupational therapy and he needed behavior therapy and we might have to do a nutritionist. And I was like, how do I don't know how to do any of those things. I didn't even know what
Right.
occupational therapy was. I never heard of occupational therapy. But when I started researching all the therapies, occupational therapy really struck me because it was holistic. It looked
Mhm.
at the whole person, not just like physical therapy, like one body part at a time. And so I started calling clinics. I start, looking up. Back then it was a phone book. I'm old.
Right.
We didn't have all this computer at our, in our hand at that time. I'm looking in the phone book. I'm calling all these places. They don't answer the phone. Nobody comes to the house. Everybody's got a wait list. Like, I'm like,
Hmm.
what am I going to do? Or they were an hour and a half away. And my girls were still little. They were in school. I was trying to work full time. So somehow I figured it was a great idea to go back to school myself. Like I had time to do that. My husband thought I was nuts. He thought had completely lost my mind. So, but I did it.
And it's a story that I've heard repeated. I have, several other people that I know that it was the same thing. Their child was diagnosed with something and they were like, okay, there's nobody around who knows how to treat this. And I know my child my best. I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to learn about this and I'm going to continue learning about it so that I can help my child. And in helping my child, I'm going to be able to help other kids too and help those other parents who were in the same situation as me and maybe didn't have access to those resources too.
I've always said I wish I had a me when he was little because I didn't have
Yeah.
any idea what I was doing. And I thought like I was a terrible parent. I mean, and I think
Right.
that's the really thing that breaks my heart with the parents, that I'm able to talk to now in the field that I'm in, um, is they feel like they're doing everything wrong or they're not doing enough. And
Right.
sometimes there isn't an enough. It's just what works for that minute, especially with
Right.
autism. Like what
Yeah.
worked yesterday doesn't work today, and what worked
Right.
today is not going to work tomorrow. So yeah, it's a crazy world to
Ever
navigate
changing.
for sure. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely ever changing. You can, like you said, something that works today may or may not work tomorrow, and you may have to try to find a new way to do things tomorrow. But you learn to roll with that and you learn to not let it bother you because those little things, like if you were to sit and fret about that and be upset about that, you would miss out on all of the gifts that your son has given you, even through all of the hard times.
Oh, he's such a cool kid. I mean, and that's been the greatest just to watch him be able to thrive now. It makes me emotional because I'll just tell you a quick story. So he was dismissed from third grade, I think it was, at a charter school here locally. And it was that phone call that, like, he's not welcome back to the school. You have to pick him up right now and he cannot return. And they didn't give me any, like, what do I do with him? Because I
Oh
had
my
to have
God.
him in school. Yeah. So it was very traumatizing. So then we homeschooled for a little while. We tried private school. None of that really worked out either. And so we finally found an autism school here locally, and we put him in an autism school for about 4 or 5 years. But that worked until it didn't. So,
Right?
kind of like in the self development space, we always say if you're the smartest one in the room, you need to find a new room.
Exactly.
That became my son at the autism school. So this school year, I decided to pull him out and put him in public high school, which is scary for a typical kid.
Right? That's a big transition.
It was a huge transition, but God sent me that little voice that said, this is what you need to do. And so we did it. And it was a struggle at first, but he is doing so good. I mean, they invited him to be part of the National Honor Society. Um, yeah, so he's talking about taking honors classes and
Oh my
going to
gosh.
college. And this is a kid that I thought would never do any of those things. So, I mean, just to those parents out there, like, don't give up. And they're so capable of so much more than we think or we give them credit for. That's been my biggest lesson. Like, don't ever underestimate him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know how much your faith is a part of your life and your family, but can you tell us about what role faith has played in your mindset and in helping you overcome challenges and redefine success on your own terms?
I have always said, I don't know how people make it in this life without Jesus. Like, I mean, that is from the bottom of my heart. Because when you are so lost and you really feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, that is all I had to hold on to. And a lot of times, like, you feel like you're praying and you're praying and you're praying and the prayers aren't answered, but he's working it all out. Like, he's been working that
Right.
whole time. You don't know how many times I've apologized to Jesus. I'm like, I am so sorry. You had this all figured out and I was yelling at you, because it does. I mean, we lost two girls and a boy. We adopted two girls and a boy. And like, he was taking care of our babies the whole time. Our girls, their biological mother was in prison for the majority of their pregnancy. And I mean, as much as that had to have been traumatizing, like in the womb to them, they were feeding her. She was drinking water. She was not on drugs. She was taking her prenatal vitamins. You know what I mean? Like, he was protecting them
Yeah.
by them being in prison during their
Yeah.
pregnancy. And just the way that we found our son was crazy. I mean, I've always said that we were on God's adoption list, because we didn't go through any formal agencies, or, it was
Wow.
literally like dropped in our lap. And I've told my husband, I'm like, that doesn't happen to other people.
No,
It
it
just
doesn't.
doesn't. I mean, people look for infants to adopt and never get to adopt any. And we got three. I mean, those are miracles. I mean,
Yeah.
hands down. And that's only something that God can do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Knowing other families that have gone through adoption and, waiting for an infant, you can wait years. And
Yeah.
so, the fact that you guys were able to get them and as quickly as you were able to, definitely, you see those, I call them God winks, and you see those little God winks all throughout your story.
Yeah, I was fortunate to cut my son's cord. I mean, I was at the birth.
Oh,
It was
wow.
real. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know that you're a big believer in personal transformation. So, can you tell us some of the most life changing personal development practices or beliefs that you've embraced?
Fitness and nutrition has been huge for me. I played sports all through high school, ran track, soccer, played softball when I was younger, and all that kind of thing. So, but I never really considered myself an athlete then. um, but I'm thankful for that now, because, um, like I said before, the all of the compounded trauma, I coped by eating. My
Hmm.
coping mechanism was food. So stuffing down all my feelings and with the food totally destroyed my gut.
Oh, yeah.
So that's been my biggest thing, is healing myself, not only through my spiritual practice, but just making sure that I'm taking care of my physical body. I have to, I relate to my son so much because he's very sensory, but I'm totally sensory. That's why I lift heavy weights. That calms my nervous, picking
Yeah.
up heavy stuff calms my nervous system.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
and when I don't get to work out, I am not very pleasant to be around. But, just the difference in eating whole foods, prioritizing your sleep, making sure that you drink enough water. It's just the way that you feel is so
Yeah.
much different. I mean, the brain fog, I mean, there's so many things. So that's been one of the biggest parts of, which is why I became a coach, because I want other women to learn that you can heal yourself without taking a pill or a shot. Like, there's
Right.
not an easy fix. Um,
Right. It's not a
you
quick
know,
fix.
no, it's a daily practice and a lifestyle change.
Yeah.
So I mean, you got to be able to make those changes and understand. And I also want to do more research. Of course, I'm kind of a nerd. I love to learn, if you haven't noticed that. But I think that there's a true connection between early menopause and trauma. I started going into
Oh,
menopause in
interesting.
my 30s and
Yeah.
didn't know it, because my doctor thought I was just crazy. They're trying to give me antidepressants, and I'm the one who told him I was in menopause. He didn't even know it.
Right.
So Yeah, I mean, you really have to look at, like I said, I love occupational therapy because it really is holistic. It has to be
Right.
mind, body, and spirit in order for you to really be able to heal yourself and just to live in this crazy world that we live in these days.
Right? Absolutely. Well, I know that you're deeply involved in your community and you are passionate about lifting others up. How do you think community plays a role in personal and professional success?
You got to have a tribe, and I've really struggled with that. And but grief changes you,
Mhm.
and just and having and you know this, just having physical ailments, having children that have challenges. Um, we couldn't just go to church with Judson.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's so, and now in my church, I just gave a talk a few weeks ago on like sensory processing and these kids that come in with, that are neurodivergent and have different needs. And so they're developing like a buddy system, and we've started a calm down room. So it's really near and dear to my heart that we can have a place for parents to bring their kids so that the parents can come to church and the kids can still learn, because
Right.
I was not able to do that when he was a kid. But
Right. And being
also being
supported by teachers that
yes.
know how to help them and know how to work with them. It's huge.
Yes. Yeah. But also having a community like our mastermind, just being with like minded women and women that are driven and women that want more and women that want to help others. It's hard to find sometimes locally a group of people that, have that same mindset. And
Yeah.
nothing wrong with, staying in your small community, but I just feel like I'm made for more. And so to have other women that encourage that is really, really important.
Well, what advice would you give to someone who feels isolated or unsupported in their personal growth journey?
You've got to reach out. You've got to reach out to somebody. You've got to find at least one person um, that you can talk to, or that, thinks the same way that you do. And now, we have social media.
Yeah.
Back when we were younger, you didn't have all these other people that you could see that they had been down the same path that you were on. So now it's just easy as clicking a button, putting in a hashtag, and you can find those people that are your people.
Yeah.
You can find those people and you can reach out to that. You can actually reach out to them, send them a DM or post on their page, start to support them. But really, and Amberly says this all the time too, but you have to help others. And that's another thing that I found is helping others helps me, when I'm able to talk to a parent and from a perspective of knowing where they are right now, like I have literally
Mhm.
been you.
Right.
Because I have a good friend in the church that her son, they're having a lot of challenges with her son right now. And she gets called out of service nearly every Sunday because
Oh,
of
wow.
his behaviors. And that's another reason why we've started this program at the church. But that was me. I was that mom. And so it just breaks my heart when I see another mom going through that. So it makes me feel good to give them some hope and encouragement, because now
Yeah.
my son sits in the pew next to me and we could never do that before. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, looking back at your journey, what's one piece of advice you would give to a woman listening today who feels lost or unsure of the next steps that she should take?
I mean, my go-to is prayer. My husband, and my kids, they're always shaking their head at me because anytime anybody has anything, I'm like, well, did you pray about that? It's almost like a joke now, because like that's what they're like, yes, mom, I prayed about it. So um but I mean, we joke about that, but
Right.
that's for real. Like,
Yeah.
I don't make any decisions without praying about it. And it's hard, especially because I know my head is noisy. There's a lot of noise in there to really, to pray and then to listen for what he has to say. And it's not always a voice, he'll send you signs. You just got to have your eyes open. to see
Right? You
them
gotta be
because
paying attention
that's right.
and I think it happens so many times when you're in the quiet with yourself. And that is a really hard place for a lot of people to go is to sit quietly with themselves and just observe things or just sit and see where their mind takes them. And a lot of people, and it takes work to be able to sit with yourself and to let your thoughts go and just see what happens.
Well, and you've got to really learn to love yourself first. That's why, I mean, I've gotten so big on self-care. And self-care takes a lot of different it looks different for different people. There's sometimes where as a mom, which I'm sure you can relate, I would feel bad if I wanted to go to the store by myself or go get my nails done or go get a massage. Um, but now self-care can look like me getting up early to work out, like, you know what I mean, before everybody else is up, and or taking a walk outside, or I mean, it doesn't even have to be that big of a deal. Drinking my water, you know, that's
Yeah.
taking care of yourself. So I think we get kind
Yeah.
of
Oh
bogged
no,
down
I
in,
remember that. I
yeah,
would I I would go years without a haircut because I didn't want to have to ask somebody for help with, with leaving my kids somewhere, things like that. I
yep,
was like, no, they're my kids, it's my responsibility. And so I would get my hair cut like once a year. And that was
yeah,
it because it would finally get so bad that I'm like, I have to go get it cut. And I would go do it. But yeah, the mom guilt is real.
yeah, that's for sure. So moms, take care of yourself first, because you can't take care of them if you're not taking care of yourself, because then you're
Yes.
yelling and
And you're
irritable
not
and
present.
no, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I do have regret about I was not present, especially when my girls were young, because I was still in grief and sadness and anxiety. So that's something that I know I can't change it, but
Right.
um, yeah, I do have regret about that.
So, what is next for you this year? What projects or personal goals are you working on right now?
Well, probably too many things. I'm probably doing too many things, but I am just got off a call with Jordan Mendoza about my website. So we're working on the website. I'm hoping to have that live by March. We are both speaking at the Unstoppable Success Summit in April. So excited about that. So I've been working on my talk. I am actively writing my book and I have an editor. So we are in the editing phases of the book. I've had like, I don't know, 4 or 5 calls with publishers. I'm trying to decide which way to go with that. So I'm hoping that my book's going to be out this year, starting my speaking career. And I'm still working in the school system. So I work with kids with autism every day, and just developmental delay and all that kind of stuff. So um, yeah, I got a lot of irons in the and
Definitely.
so
I'm
as well
excited for
as
your
you
book.
do.
Yeah, definitely. No, but I will keep asking about your book because I know that that has been a goal for you. Yeah,
That's my
so
main
I'm
goal.
going to keep asking you about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my main goal. I really want that to be published this year and get it out by summer. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Well, and I know it's been coming along and you've gotten a lot of it done. So,
Yes. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
well, Christina, thank you so much for being here with us today. And we are definitely going to have to jump on again when your book comes out so that we can talk about your book.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Monica. This is my first podcast. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So, when
I
we're
didn't
both
know that.
famous later, yeah, we'll be like, she had me on first.
Right?
So, you'll always get credited with that.
Absolutely. Yep. We're always there pushing each other up and supporting each other. And so absolutely we can say that we helped move each other's career a little bit.
That's right. I cannot wait to see you in April and hug you. It's going to be so fun.
Yes. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I cannot wait for April and being able to connect with all of the ladies. And, like Christina said, if you are not in community, it is so important to find a community. If you don't have a community, connect with Christina or connect with myself. We both have communities and definitely would welcome anyone to come and join our community.
That's for sure. The more the merrier.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me on Unshakable Belief. If today's episode inspired you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, trust your journey, embrace your purpose, and let your belief guide you forward.